If you're all ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Matt. I'm the children's pastor at our church in Hilliard, Ohio, and this is Barb.
Right, and it doesn't seem right to call me Barb and call you Matt.
That's right.
Because we are Miss Barb and Mr. Matt, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
so that just feels really weird when you say Barb. We don't say that.
Yes.
But anyway, welcome, 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 you guys. We are excited you're here. In fact, I should be saying, good day, mates. Welcome to Australia.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
I better stop.
Yeah.
Stop right there, you guys.
Yeah.
That's the end of my Aussie accent. Forget it, okay?
No more.
But this is going to be such a fun VBS. We already did it. Matt and I got to teach this year. Usually we don't. But we actually got to teach this year, and it was awesome. Watching the kids' excitement, not only just for the fun theme, but for the spiritual theme. A lot went on, and it was really, really, really exciting. So we're excited to bring it to you guys and just see it spread out. I mean, isn't Australia a super fun place? You know, don't we all love kangaroos and koalas and stuff like that? But did you know there's all kinds of cool environments too? I mean, we all know about the outback, of course, but there's rainforests, there's eucalyptus forests. You can call them eucalypt forests too. Either one's right, okay? There's the coast, of course, where there's over 10,000 beaches. Did you know there's even penguins in Australia? Okay, because down near Antarctica, right? It's super, super cold. So it is a fascinating place. After taking a year to kind of research and write about it, I just want to hop on a plane and go. Is there anybody else that wants to come with me to Australia? Man, I want to see it in person.
We should have had this in Australia today.
I know, wouldn't that have been cool?
Yeah, it's summer down there, by the way.
Anyway, summer. So, and of course Ken Ham is from Australia, so like, what took us so long to do this?
Right.
I mean, really. But, so super fun, but obviously we're really excited that we get to share the value of life and talk about returning to the value of life, our spiritual theme. Stacia has already talked about that somewhat, but I just wanted to mention that just teaching and seeing the kids, those interactions with them about this topic was huge. And we had this one hall, we just called it the Sanctity of Life Hall. We had these jumbo posters going down the wall with a baby in utero just showing
the different stages of development.
Every month. And the kids were glued to those pictures. I'm sure they probably have never seen anything like that before. And they were looking at, you know, at this stage, the baby's the size of a pea, you know, and all these kinds of things. And I couldn't help thinking to myself, if we fast forwarded 10 years, 20 years, what difference might it make in a child who that day is learning that every life has value, right? I mean, what if they get in a situation themselves when they're older, or they know somebody? What seeds are being planted in their minds at this VBS? And not just about babies who have not been born yet. I mean about all of life. We had all kinds of stuff in that hallway. We had a lot of hands-on stuff that they could feel and touch, skeletons.
Parts of the body, like, it's kind of like a science museum sort of touch and feel sort of thing.
Like a kid's museum we kind of did in that hallway, and they loved it. So you have no idea what kind of fruit might come from this. And we might not even see it ever in our lifetime. It might even be years down the road, or we might not ever see it. But I believe God is going to use this to save lives, maybe physically save lives, and also spiritually save lives. So it's big stuff, and I'm excited that you guys are along for the ride. So we got to get you in the mood. So we're going to do a little quiz.
This is going to be interactive. So I know we're in a big room, but you're allowed to yell out. Okay.
We're children's people.
We're children's people. This is kids ministry.
We're used to noise, okay?
So
anyway, we're going to do this little Aussie quiz to see how much lingo you know. All right, here we go.
Here's our first one. This is an easy one. Starting out easy. What is it if you say mate? Friend, absolutely.
I'm glad you
good.
got
You got that one. How about this one? Nana. It's not your grandma. Banana. That's right. You know, they kind of shorten everything over there.
They do.
Uni.
I love that.
Uni. Yeah,
right.
College or university. It's not a uniform. This is one of my absolute favorites. Lolly. It means candy or sweets.
Right.
It's also what Barb's grandkids call her, Lolly. So, but that doesn't have anything to do with Australia.
We had to have thematic grandparent
Yes.
names. I know you're shocked that I'm a grandparent, by the way, but
Yes.
you know.
I mean,
It
parents,
happens, and it's
kids call it
awesome.
that.
But yeah, Randy's Papa. So do you get it? Lolly. They call him Pops. Get it?
Lollipop.
Lolly and Pops.
Lolly and Pops.
I know. We carried it all the way to grandparent names.
Children's
Anyway,
ministry, all the time. All right, next one, sunnies. Sunglasses, absolutely. And my favorite, brekkie, breakfast. That's right. Did you all have a good brekkie this morning? Yeah, so we started having brekkies after VBS, you know, like get together little meeting brekkies.
We did.
They're fantastic.
We really had fun with that. So anyway, you did good. All right, I think you're ready. So let's take a little tour of days 1 through 5, and you'll see what we're doing. There's a little bit of interactive stuff. If you didn't hear already, you will need a pen or something to write with at some point if you don't have one out already. Okay, so here we go. First day, we're talking about the beginning of life.
Before we get there, we're going to talk about what we do every day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Matt. Let's tell them what we do
just
every
give
day.
you a brief overview of what we do for the schedule every single day. For everyone but the toddlers have their own schedule, but for pre-primary all the way up, the lesson starts with what we call the Introduce It, which is something like we just did there. It's just kind of a fun little, maybe some interactive facts and things like that, but it also has our destination poster, which you see over here, and I'm going to throw one up on the screen for you as well. We are visiting a different destination around Australia every day, and you get this handy little "You Are Here" that you can slap up at different places along the map as you go there every day, and we do that during the Introduce It part. After that, we head into our teaching time, where we're going to do the lesson. Here's a couple of our teachers that were really into it. Every day they taped something all over their outfit that had to do with the day that we were doing parts of the body is what you see there. So they had like eyeballs and ears and tongues and stuff taped all over their
Sometimes they
outfits.
stuck like little plush animals in the pockets and stuff, but the kids loved that.
They love finding all the different things that were going on. Of course, all of our lessons are interactive, and the kids are constantly doing something to keep their minds engaged and everything. We do a puppet show. We're going to do a little example of that over here. We didn't have this when we piloted it. This was sort of our example of how we did a puppet show. It's really fun to have the little Jeep there working for your puppet stage, and that's for the primary and younger ages. So then after the teach it time with the puppet and the large group discussion questions, we also give you 2 different review game options every single day that you can do if you have time. Like Stacia mentioned earlier, you're not going to get to everything. And so kind of pick and choose what works best for you. Then we get to the apply it section. In there, you're going to find the memory verse for the day. We call those our fair dinkum verses, which is a phrase in Australia that means 100% truthful and genuine. And so that's why they're called the fair dinkum verses, because they're, of course, 100% true. And you also get to talk about the student guides, which are those take-home papers with the go and do sections and everything in there. And we also, one thing that our younger kids love that we do for our pre-primary and toddler ages are our exploration stations. And so we have the kids doing like sand tables, water tables. We had a dress-up zone, and they got to pretend like they were going on a flight to Australia. We made a little airplane area in there, and when we talked about the parts of the body, they had dolls and little doctor offices set up. And so in your teacher guide, it'll show you kind of something like this on how you can set up different stations around the room for the interactive play that goes along with every day's lesson. So now we'll head off to day 1.
All right, I'm just too excited.
You are.
Too eager, right? All right, so we're talking the first day about the beginning of life. This is a huge topic. It makes a big difference about how we feel about ourselves, how we treat others, depending on what we think, how life began, human life began. And that's what we're talking about. So we'll be heading to the Outback, all right? And you're going to notice that we start kind of in the middle of Australia, and then we boomerang around. There's a lot of boomeranging happening in various ways.
Zoomeranging and boomeranging.
Zoomeranging and boomeranging. And so we zoomerang around, and we end up on the 5th day back in the Outback. So you can kind of follow along, and you're going to see how it takes that trajectory like a boomerang would. So we start in the Outback at a place called Uluru, or you might have heard it as Ayers Rock. Okay, it's the same place. One is the Aboriginal term for it, and then Ayers Rock is what it was also called as well. So we're heading there, and we have this little animal pal, as Stacia mentioned, Jumpin' Jack. He's hopping by to remind us of lots of things about how life begins, okay? And he'll also tell us a little bit about our memory verse, which is, so God created man in his own image. I spent a lot of time, I probably spent 2 months thinking about this before I wrote a word about what does that mean to be made in God's image, and how is that going to impact our lives? And so that's our verse. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. That's a really big verse, especially for our culture right now. So anyway, we did that, and we really did talk about being made in God's image. Stacia, I think, already showed you that poster. What does that mean? We can do things that animals can't do, all right? We're not just animals, and so we shouldn't be acting like it. That's how we act in this culture, right? Because that's what we're told. So we take some time to kind of compare two very predominant views of how life began. Did it begin with a creator God who loves us and who made us as an image bearer? Or did it begin with human evolution and all that that entails? And we do some really cool interactive stuff, don't we, Mr. Matt?
Yes, we do.
See, Mr. Matt. Have to call him Mr. Matt.
There you go.
To start showing the kids those differences.
Take out your pipe cleaners, or chenille stems, as some people call them.
I call them pipe cleaners, but we have to write them as chenille stems. So there you go.
We began the lesson time this day with talking about the creation account. So we went to the book of Genesis, and what we allowed the kids to do is we gave them a whole bundle of these, probably around a dozen or so. And as we read the different, I think 3 different sections from the creation account in Genesis, they were allowed to take 2 or 3 pipe cleaners and sculpt anything that they wanted that had to do with what we were talking about. And so we're going to try one with you guys. So you go ahead and get your pipe cleaners out and get ready to sculpt as Barb reads for you.
Okay, so it's Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Okay, and I think we continued on, but we're just doing that for a short time. So while you're sculpting away, yell out to me, what have you decided you're going to sculpt? What's somebody making out there? Just shout it out. Fish.
Fish.
Okay, anybody else make fish? Probably have some fish makers. Anybody make something different than a fish?
I made 3 creeping things.
A person. What you make?
3 creeping things. Creative.
Okay, anything else?
All right.
Birds, I didn't hear who that was. A mirror? That's cool.
Wow.
It's fun to see what the kids come up with this, you guys. It really is. And we did this with 3 different passages. We did it with this one and then 2 more. And we just kind of talked about that. But they're busy. They're making stuff. And I want to show you a little, here, hold this for a sec. I want to show you a little hint when you're doing these. What we did, we gave them about 8 or 9 for the 3 different things that we were going to be doing. So we took 7, let's say, and the 8th one, we just went like this and just did a little twist, okay?
Twist.
And that was their set. So it made it really easy. We made these up ahead of time. We always stick everything under their chairs before we actually do it, so that we don't have to even mess around, you know, passing out stuff.
We don't spend any time passing stuff out. We don't have any extra time. So
no extra time. These lessons are jam-packed. So we get it all ready ahead of time, and then when they just pull it out whenever we tell it. They really liked this pipe cleaner thing, okay? So we did that, and then we went into...
We went into our apologetics focus, where we're talking about how you cannot make a monkey out of me. And of course, this is what they're used to seeing in textbooks and when you go to the zoo and at the library and everything like that. And so we wanted to give them an idea of what goes on with all of these ape man pictures, posters, things that we talk about and everything like that. So here's how we're going to introduce that to the kids. You're going to take out your little piece of paper. That is the half sheet of paper there, and it's got a little squiggly on it, a little swirl on it. This is called your doodle pattern, okay? So what I would like you to do is take out a pen, pencil, whatever you got there,
Marker.
and kind of put it the same direction as you see up here on the screen, all right? And what we started this doodle for you. I'm going to give you a hint. It's a creature. It's your job to finish it. So go ahead and finish that drawing for us, okay?
Now you got to tell the kids.
Yeah.
We don't have all day.
We ain't got a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to doodle
so
fast.
you got to sketch it fast.
This is not a
30 seconds.
This is not
right?
our class. We're just trying to sketch this creature that we started for you. You know, we just want you to finish it.
Right.
Okay.
It's going to be fun to see what they had. And
Yeah.
we did have the kids hold them up and show us what they had. We were oohing and awing
Yes.
over everybody's creatures and what they thought that doodle pattern was.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're even sort of done, go ahead and hold yours up,
Show it up.
for us to see.
Okay.
Oh,
Man, I probably used to be able to see that stuff, but
yeah, no,
I
we
can't do it
see.
anymore.
Anyway.
All right. but
Well, guess what?
this is what you were supposed to have. Did you have that?
Yeah, that's what it was
Anybody
supposed to be,
have
you
that?
guys.
You
Did
had
you draw that?
Good job.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Well, this is interesting. Of course, nobody's going to ever come up with that, but that leads us into this discussion of these ape man fakes. And we went through a bunch of them. I'm just going to throw a few of them up here on the screen for you. Do you realize that a lot of these ape men that are talked about in these textbooks, they found maybe a little bit of a bone, and you'll see up there on the picture. The Nebraska man, they found one tooth. Okay, one tooth. And they have pictures of his skin tone, hair.
They've got him in a whole environment.
The environment that he lived in. Okay, all of this stuff from a tooth. A lot of these others, the Piltdown man was actually a complete fraud. So a scientist had taken a bone and actually shaved it down and like dyed it to make it look old in order to say that he had found. But all of these were in textbooks this fraud stayed in the textbooks for a really long time. And so you get to talk through each of these individually and talk about, you know, they found these tiny little pieces, but created these entire like
drawings.
Creatures and drawings with little evidence and made a whole lot of assumptions when they were doing that things. And often later on, they were found out that, I think it was Nebraska man, they found out that was a pig tooth. Yes, it was a pig tooth. So they drew this guy, gave him all these features, put him in an environment, made all these pictures, and then found out, oh, it was just a pig.
Right.
So.
Anyway, so that was pretty impactful. And you may or may not, there's a lot written in there. Feel free, you guys. This is your lesson time, okay? So make it your lesson time. You might have to buzz through something. You might get stuck on something for a while because the kids are fascinated by it. But just know there's a lot written in there. So that is one reason why we say be really organized. We kind of buzzed through those pretty fast, but it was very impactful for what it was, okay? So that's what we did day one. You can see why that's a big day. Now the second day is the wonder of life. The beginning of life, now we're on the wonder of life. We want to wow the kids with God's amazing design, okay? So we go to the Great Barrier Reef. We talk a little bit about the amazing animals that are there. But then what we really want to talk about is God's crowning creation, which is people, okay? So you're going to notice we were here, now we're up here, okay? So we're starting this boomerang thing, as I mentioned, and we've got our little animal pal with us, which is Shimmer the coral. How many of you knew that coral, they're animals? Okay, so I actually didn't know that, but I learned it and I thought that was so cool. So anyway, that's our animal pal for the day, reminding us that people are really God's amazing creation, even though all those animals are too. And as I mentioned, we just want to wow them with how God designed them. So this day was really fun, wasn't it, Mr. Matt, when we did all these stations?
We did these stations around you can do it in stations around your room. We ended up doing it more as a large group, and there's different posters that come along with this that you can put up around your room, and you can rotate if you'd like, or you can just kind of go through these one at a time, where we're looking at the different amazing ways that God created our body. So here's what I want you to do. Everybody stand up. And I want you to not touch anything and stand on one foot for 30 seconds, okay?
All right.
And do that. And while you're standing there on one foot, counting to 30, did you realize that God made your bones 4 times stronger than concrete? If you did not have these amazing bones, you would be a rag doll right now, and you would be flopping all around on the ground without anything to do. But even though God made your bones
It's not
4
30 seconds yet.
times stronger than concrete, he also made them very lightweight. Because if your bones were as heavy as concrete, you'd still be in bed today.
That's right.
You know?
All right,
And
you can put them down.
You can put
and
your
you
feet
can
down.
sit back down. We do a couple more little fun things like that.
Yeah.
The kids were into that. That was
Absolutely.
a lot of fun, okay?
The
As we talked about how important our
Yeah.
bones really are. So that was a good one. And then, you want to keep going on that?
Yeah, so did you know that the smallest bone is about the size of a grain of rice? Does anybody know where it is? It's in your ear, absolutely. So we got to say things like that. The longest bone is in your leg, and you know, there's so many different kind of fun facts you can throw out there. Everybody go like this, wiggle your nose. God also gave us cartilage, okay, so that squishy stuff. And speaking of our noses, the next thing we talked about was going onto our noses. So this is another thing you can grab out of your bag. You got a little cup. It's got either a 1 or a 2 written on it, okay? And so you can do these, you could have a station set up where everybody kind of shares one. We had, I think,
we made 4.
4.
Okay, you can make whatever number you want. We gave them 4 in a Ziploc, again, under their chair.
So,
and they got to do all 4, and they got to take the set home. This was very popular, and do this at home with their families. But we only gave you 1, so you're gonna smell your 1.
Smell your 1.
And try to guess what you think it is. And then somebody else is gonna have either a 1 or a 2 on their lid. You
trade
can
with somebody.
Trade, and you can smell theirs and try to see if you can guess what theirs is.
Guess what
so
it
go
is.
ahead and try that for a second while we're telling you a little bit about our amazing noses.
Did you know that God made your nose to distinguish over 1 trillion different scents? 1 trillion different scents. That's amazing.
1 trillion. What do you have?
I have something minty. It smells minty, so I'm...
Anybody have the peppermint?
By the way, if you cannot smell anything, you have COVID. And
it was nice having you here.
Great.
Time to leave.
Yeah, see ya. No, we should have just left half of them with nothing in it. That would have been hilarious.
You can do that.
So I had number 2, so that one was peppermint. What did number 1 smell like? Pickle
you got
juice.
it. Pickle juice.
Absolutely.
So, and we did find that you need to make these pretty close to the time because some of these smells
some will last a couple days,
dissipate.
but some won't.
Yeah, the pickle. We made them on Thursday. They're still really strong, so it's been 2 days. No, we actually might. I think we actually might have done them Wednesday.
I think we made these on Wednesday this week.
So these lasted 3 days.
But we picked the scents out of the scents that we recommend in the book. We picked the ones that we knew would stay on the cotton ball for several days.
So what we did was got all these ready. We put them on a tray. We had the cotton balls in there. We had the lids numbered and everything like that. And then we actually took like a squeegee thing that you'd put ketchup in and just kind of like that and just did some in each thing just shortly before and stuck the lids on and collated them into little baggies. So it was fun.
And did you know that God put your nose on top of your mouth for a reason? Because it can warn you if you're about to put something in your body that would be bad for you, okay? And so God thought of everything when he designed us. And you know what else is in your nose? And we had I don't have one with me, we had a quart-sized jar, okay? Did you know that your nose, your sinuses produce a quart of mucus every day? We don't call it mucus though, do we? No, we call it snot in children's ministry, all right?
You can get gross.
And this is when you're healthy.
Right.
I mean, when you get COVID, Omicron, it's like quart an hour, you know? And, but mucus, we often think of it as this gross thing that we just want to get rid of, we want to blow it out of our noses. But do you realize that God gave you this mucus, and one of the things that it does several things. One of the things it does, it actually warms the air as you breathe. So when you were walking in this morning and it was 9 degrees outside, your lungs did not freeze because God gave you mucus.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, anybody that just thinks this happened. So man, I want them to be awed by God. I can't wait for you guys to share this. It's going to be great. All right, then another one we did was our DNA. So if you can grab that long strip of paper, this is where you need a pen or pencil or marker, okay? And we want you to just take that and just quickly jot down whatever letters in whatever order you want to on that
All the way across the
big,
paper.
long strip. Just slap them on there. Just whatever you want, okay? Do that. So we gave the kids a little time to write that down, all right? And I'll go ahead and be a spoiler while you're doing it. But what we did with it was then they looked at each other's. And we were trying to find somebody who had matched. Do you think any of you are going to match each other's code? Okay. But, you know, they kind of thought maybe they would match. And so they're looking at each other's thing to see if anybody's got the same code. Of course they don't. I mean, the probability of that happening is next to impossible. And then multiply that by our DNA code, which is billions and trillions of times more than that little strip of paper, right? So it's enough that we won't even match that strip of paper, let alone what God put inside our bodies. It's more like, it's bigger than the biggest library ever full of information.
Because not even identical twins have the same DNA.
Right, exactly. So that was cool to get to share a little bit about DNA. Then there were a couple more stations. We didn't do all of them.
Mouth, hands, and eyes. You can get into those if your time allows you to do that. Really great, amazing design features that God
we had
made.
time to do 4, just if in case you're interested. We did not do the last 2. But we did those first 4, and that was a lot of fun. We had a great time doing that.
Yeah, and so of course, throughout that whole thing, we're reminding them how God thought of everything, and we had a really great discussion with the kids and the discussion questions, and we just talked about, and Stacia talked about this a little bit in the opening session there too, but what if someone, their eyes don't work like your or my eyes may work?
Right.
Did God make a mistake there? Are they fearfully and wonderfully made? What if somebody's not able to hear, you know? And we just were able to challenge the kids and let them to understand that God doesn't make mistakes.
Right. Every single person is made with care. Every single person is made with purpose. It was a very powerful time and led to some good discussions. Okay, so that was day 2. Now we're on to day 3. Now we're going to talk about the value of life. We've talked about the beginning of life, the wonder of life, the value of life. This was maybe one of my very favorite days, Mr. Matt. I love this day because it's just such an important day to talk about the value, whether it's a preborn baby, whether it's a 95-year-old in a wheelchair with dementia, whether it's somebody else in a wheelchair, whether it's a 25-year-old who's healthy, whether it's somebody who's light-skinned, whether it's somebody who's dark-skinned. It doesn't matter. Everybody has value. And we went to the coast because in Australia, 90% of the people live along the coast. So there's all kinds of people. And now, as I said, here, now we're coming down the coast, okay?
Yep.
And that's where we landed, kind of at Sydney Harbor, where Bill the platypus reminded us of too. He's a very unique animal.
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when they first found the platypus, they thought it was fake.
Yeah.
Because of all the amazing design features that God has given it, you know, the flippers, like, you know, it has properties of like a mammal, properties of a reptile.
Right, all this stuff. So it's very unique, but of course we, again, are the most unique. So that Bill kind of reminded us of that. Do you get why we named him Bill? I hope. Bill, get it?
Bill.
I never know when I'm writing these things at 2 in the morning if it's gonna make sense. Like, does that make sense, you guys? Okay, so anyway, Bill the platypus, there we go. And our memory verse was really special. I know you've heard this, you know, if you've been in church any length of time at all. And as you wish others would do to you, do so to them. But I want you to just kind of get across to the kids and think for yourself. Can you imagine if every person on the planet just followed this one thing? If we all just did this, if we all just treated each other how we want to be treated, don't we want to be treated with respect? Don't we want to be treated with kindness? If we all just did that one thing, the world would be a completely different place, wouldn't it? So this is an important verse to remind us of the value and the respect that we should treat each person with.
Yeah, and so we went through the Jesus's birth account here, and then so this is kind of like a little bit of a throwback. It's kind of almost like flannel graph that you can use with the younger kids. We did it digitally, so we had our digital flannel graph work, and we talk about, and you're adding these pieces, these cutouts and stuff as you go through
that's a finished
the account.
Scene,
yeah,
yes.
That's a finished scene of the manger scene. We talk about the shepherds. We talk about when Jesus is a boy and the visit from the wise men, but we also focus on Herod, the bad guy in the story who did not value life at all and was set on killing Jesus and ordering that the babies to be murdered. And so we focus on that and just emphasizing how all life has value.
Right. He was not valuing life. And we kind of took it on from there. So we're going to do a little puppet demonstration for you right now so you can kind of see. Once, as Matt mentioned, in the junior guide, we don't have the puppets, but we do have them in the other ages, okay? And so the kids always love the puppet. Always love the puppet. If you guys have done Answers VBS before, any of you done the puppets? Anybody been here that done it? Okay, a few of you. They love the puppets. They're so fun. So, okay, you guys, go back down. You jumped the gun. Go back down. All right, you're going to help me bring the puppet up, okay? The puppet's name is Sydney. Okay, we're in Sydney Harbor, Sydney. All right, Sydney. So on the count of 3, let's yell Sydney, okay? 1, 2, 3, Sydney!
Hi,
there
everyone.
we go. Okay,
Hey.
that was what you're supposed to say. Good day, mates.
Good day, mates.
There you go. I have to prompt him. What am I going to do with him, okay? All right,
Okay.
hey, what's that you have there, Sydney?
It's a doorknob hanger that I'm going to take to my grandpa. He lives in a nursing home, and I want to put it on his doorknob to brighten his day.
Oh, that's such a nice thought. Do you visit your grandpa very often?
Oh, yes, we do.
Well, what's he like?
Well, he's really old, and he can't really talk anymore or feed himself. But when we go, we sing to him and help feed him his dinner, and I get to hold his hand.
Oh, do you like to do that?
I sure do. My mommy says that even though Grandpa can't talk anymore, he's loved by God and us. God wants us to take good care of him, just like God takes good care of us.
Wow, that sounds like an important job, to be taking care of others who can't take care of themselves.
Yeah, it really is, because the Bible tells us to love one another as God loved us.
Oh, that's a lot of love. We know God loved us so much, he sent his son as a baby who couldn't take care of himself when he first was born.
Yeah, I know, and we should love babies and take care of them, and guess what? We should love Grandpa and others who are older that can't take care of themselves.
That is so true. I know a young boy who's in a wheelchair, and he really can't feed himself, and that happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I sure hope he has some good people who are loving him and caring for him.
Yeah, he does. And really, anybody who's part of God's family, we should be loving each other and caring for each other in all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, it shouldn't really matter if a person is rich or poor, healthy or sick, or young or old.
That's true, Sydney, because every life is precious to God. All right, so that's it goes on just a little bit more, but that's kind of the gist of it. You might realize, just listening to that, there's a lot of teaching in there, right? Mm-hmm. That's just not for fun. It is fun, but it's also teaching a lot. And so try to do those puppet shows if you can. You can utilize the puppets in whatever way you want. Okay, they can help sing songs. They can greet the kids when they come in. They just love the puppet. It's great.
Yep.
So anyway, the puppet's Sydney.
Yep.
And then for the older kids, we did this thing, instead of the puppet, we did something called the Boomerang game. Now this has a lot of teaching in it, okay? And you may not have time, you won't have time to do all these questions because there's a lot of questions written into it, but you could continue this on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night or some other time, or even some other time during VBS, because there's really good stuff in this. If you didn't get through, play it again, even play it with more. So we're just gonna do 2 questions just to give you a little idea.
So we gave every kid a game board. They had a dice and a little piece to move around, and we would ask them a question like this, and your job is to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down to see if they are valuing life the way that God wants us to value life. So here's an example. When I see someone who isn't cool, I send text messages to my friends so we can laugh at them. And so we'd ask the kids, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Okay, what do you think? Thumbs
Yep.
up, thumbs down.
So of course, if you
Right.
said thumbs down, you're right. We don't ever want to do that, okay? As a matter of fact, James 3, 9, and 10, and we would go into to explain that a little bit. So if you said thumbs down, you can roll your dice and you can move on the board.
Right. Okay, so then the next one is, my name was Amy Carmichael. I started an orphanage in India to rescue children from a bad life. Is that an example of valuing life, thumbs up, or not valuing life, thumbs down? Okay, you're gonna see these are pretty easy, which is fun because then they get to roll and they get to move if they get it right. But then we go on, you know, we talk about God loving to be a defender, for us to be defenders of the defenseless and to help people like orphans and widows. And we have that verse from James 1:27 that talks about that, about helping orphans and widows in their distress. Again, just building this worldview of what does it mean to value life. So that's why this game was important.
Yeah, and then when we got into our discussion time, some really good discussion points with our kids again, we basically just asked them, who is more important? A 25-year-old who's healthy or a 95-year-old who's sick? Who is more important? A baby that's still in mommy's tummy or a 3-year-old? Someone with light skin or dark skin, and someone who is very athletic, maybe they can dunk a basketball, or maybe somebody who's physically unable to play sports. And we challenge the kids with that. And you know, honestly, Barb, because you know, I'm a pastor, I work at a church, I homeschool my kids, you know, I kind of can even look at these questions and say, oh, they know the answers to these, right? But our leaders were coming back to us and just telling us like that it's snack time. The kids were like, they didn't realize that a baby in mommy's tummy is just as valuable as a 3-year-old. They didn't realize that. And it kind of just had to reiterate to myself, because sometimes I, you know, just in my world, I don't really think of that. It's not something I would think of. I think everybody knows the answer to this, but it really challenged some kids who were brought by their friends. So it was really good to have that discussion time.
It was. In fact, they said, you know, they're thinking a 25-year-old who's healthy, they're more important than somebody who is maybe 85 and sick. Like, they actually are saying that out loud. And so what does that do for us to have these conversations where they're learning that no, we're all made in God's image. We're all image bearers and all that good stuff that we talk about. So that was that day. A lot going on day 3. Okay, day 4. Woo! Now we're heading to eternal life. We've done beginning of life, wonder of life, value of life, eternal life, and we're moving our way down to the eucalypt forest, which is down here, where the koalas live. All right, there's a lot of forests in Australia, but this is one that's really, really cool, the eucalypt forest, or eucalyptus, you could say it either way. And we've got Paula the koala there, okay, reminding us about parenting, okay?
Yes.
And
Great
then
moms,
our little verse is, Jesus said to her, I'm the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. This is all about life, this VBS. And so this is just reminding us, even when we die, we can live with Christ. And so, of course, we went into the gospel with this one.
Yeah, and so really I would encourage you, start praying about this day right now. When you're gonna spend the entire lesson, of course, every lesson has a gospel opportunity in it, but this lesson being solely focused on the gospel message. And so what we're gonna have you do is, if you got a pen or something, and we need your left hand. Yes.
Left hand.
Need your left hand. And these kids loved this one.
They loved this.
Because they got to write on their hands.
Right.
Okay.
Now, if you don't want to do that, there is a pattern in there, and they can write on the paper.
Go for it.
We did it this
Yeah, we let them
way.
write on their hands.
It was awesome.
So, and so, you know, our lesson focus being God loves you so much that he sent his only son to die for you. We taught them this little acronym, SMILE, okay? And they got to do this on their hand. So you can draw a little smiley face on your thumb, okay? And, you know.
That's symbolizing that great creation. Everything was good.
It's perfect.
Everybody would be smiling. Everything was happy at the beginning when God made the world.
Yeah, and so we kind of talked about creation and how everything, showed them this poster here, everything was perfect. That's that happy smiley face. And then on your pointer finger there, you're gonna do an S, okay? And that S is for sin. And we talked about when sin entered the world and Adam and Eve, okay? But then, after we talked about that, we wanted them to realize that it's not just Adam and Eve's sin, but it's my sin too. So that's where we get the my, the my, on our middle finger there. Because you and I are sinners. We're born sinners, and we keep sinning. We sin because we're sinners. And we wanted to emphasize, gave some examples of sin, wanted to make sure that everybody realized what sin was and that they were sinners. The next letter is the L, and that stands for love. Because God so loved us, right? He sent away. He sent Jesus. And we showed him this poster here, and we talked about how Jesus was born, talked about how Jesus grew up to be a man, and he healed the sick and performed these miracles. We talked about how Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And then we tell him how he rose again in the empty tomb. And then our last one is the letter E that you write on your pinky, okay? And that stands for eternal life. And we challenge the kids with this box, this gift box. And we just emphasize to them that God has got this free gift of salvation to you, but like any gift, it does you no good if you never receive it, okay? And so, you know, I can buy Miss Barb the most wonderful present in the world, but if it never gets opened and sits on a shelf, she's never going to receive this amazing gift that was given to her. And so,
I don't think you've ever bought me a present.
I haven't, yeah. So
note that, okay?
Apparently, I know what I'm doing this afternoon, hitting the Answers bookstore. All right. No, but, and just chat, and of course gave the kids an opportunity to give, to respond to the gospel right there. We had like a large group, about 100 kids in our room while we were teaching, and just at that moment, God gave me the idea to just say, hey, you know, if you trusted Christ as your Savior today, I want you to run up and give somebody a fist bump and say, I prayed. And afterwards, these 4th and 6th graders are running up to their leaders and running up to me and Miss Barb and giving us fist bumps and telling us that they had prayed to receive Christ that day. It was amazing.
It was. And later on, I'm doing one on leading a child to Christ. And so we always do make sure, though, that we actually sit down with anybody that's done that so that we actually talk that through and make sure they really understand it's a big deal. That's a big deal, and we don't want them to have a false assurance. So we'll talk more about that if you come to that Leading a Child to Christ one. But anyway, that was day 4, very focused on the gospel and eternal life. And then we head right back on day 5 to the Outback again, to a place called Coober Pedy.
This is the coolest place.
This is cool. So this is day 5, using your life, and we're at Coober Pedy. Coober Pedy is a very hot place. Of course, all of the Outback's very hot. And so this town has kind of gone underground, okay? They mine there, they mine for opals, they mine many other minerals and precious things out of the ground, but they also live under the ground, and they not only live there, they have a whole town that's underground.
Stores are underground, hotels, restaurants.
Yes, I want you to go Google this.
Google Coober Pedy. I had never heard of it before, but I so want to go there now.
Yes, so you can. There's hotels underground, churches, stores, restaurants, and people's houses, and it is really fascinating. The kids loved it. We showed them some pictures.
Showed a lot of pictures.
That's a picture of a church there on the poster. Anyway, so that's fun. You can add to these pictures. The posters have a couple pictures. We actually even made more slides. Or you can just hold up pictures if you wanted, if you Googled it and threw some more pictures of these different, every single day where you're going.
There's some really cool Coober Pedy decorating ideas we'll talk about in our decorating session later.
Yeah, there really are. So underground cave, very fun. So anyway, we talked about that, and we had Ringo the dingo, who they live there. They've got their dingo fence there. Ringo's got that purpose, but so does every person in Coober Pedy. It wouldn't work if they didn't have each different person doing their thing, because it's a very unique town. And we kind of segue into how each of us has a purpose. You know, we're not just animals. We're not just here to eat, drink, and be merry, and then we die. No, if you're here, you have a reason that you're here. God made us on purpose for a purpose.
Yep.
And so we get into talking all about that, which was really fun.
And a part of what we did is we were kind of continuing from the gospel presentation the day before. So in your bags, you got this little group of cards. You can pull those out. And what we had the kids do, and you can do this right now, is we had them try to put the cards in order, the ones that we used yesterday. And so there were 5 that we had used.
7.
7? The day we used before? Okay.
There's 7 that we used yesterday, so they already had gone through those,
she's right.
okay?
Of course she's right.
And then
She wrote it.
and then we
3
went on
that we were going to use
yes.
today. And so their job was to kind of, while we were talking, they were going back and trying to put them in order. And of course, it went, these posters I showed you, creation and sin and Jesus being born, and Jesus is a man, and then Jesus carrying his cross, Jesus risen from the dead, and then the gift box. And then when we got into the lesson for today, after we got done with our quick review, we talked about how Jesus appeared to his disciples and to many others.
After he rose from the dead, you're going to notice that little handprint.
Yes, the mark on his hand.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then we talked about Jesus' ascension. And
he went back up to heaven.
And then we talked about how he went to heaven.
Right,
and that's where Jesus is now, but he has left us here. When we trust Christ as our Savior, he doesn't take us right up to heaven. He leaves us here so we can be his hands and feet.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And so that got into how we were able to talk to them about God made you on purpose, for a purpose, and we have jobs to do while we are here.
We do. So you can go ahead and bundle those back up, but the kids, they're all on one sheet, okay? And so we just cut them, bundled them like that, and used those, and that was good. And they got to take them home, and they could do that at home as well. But so, yes, we talked about, once we got to the point where we're talking about everybody has jobs to do, right? We all have stuff to do. So you need to get your Q-tip out, and you need to get that doodle pattern back out. Okay, you're going to use the back side of the doodle pattern. You need the Q-tip. Just those 2 things right now.
Yeah.
If you could grab those 2 things. And this was for the part where we were talking about how God has designed each one of us to do very specific things, very specific jobs. We're here for a reason. Okay, so what we want you to do is take your Q-tip, and right now, we want you to try to draw a little masterpiece just using your Q-tip on that piece of paper, okay? Just go ahead and do that now.
Yep, paint us a masterpiece.
Yep. See, they don't react the way the kids do.
Kids got really mad at this point.
So the kids were like, what? We can't do that!
Where's the paint?
Where's the paint? Where's everything else? Like they were literally yelling at us, right?
They were not happy.
Okay, because they realized, wait, they're missing some of the things that they need to make this masterpiece. And that was the point of what we were trying to talk about, right, Mr. Matt?
Yes, and we're not allowed to paint in the worship center.
Well, yeah, that too.
So,
especially because it had just been renovated.
Yeah,
we weren't
it was
allowed
like a
to
month
really
old
paint.
at that point.
Yeah.
And so the kids were a little upset, and we didn't have to clean up a mess, so that was great. But we were just talking about how if something's missing, it doesn't work right. And we're talking about the body of Christ. And that led us into, and jump to this one, that led us into this interactive poster that we had. And we talked about how we're all different parts of the body, and each one of us has different abilities, different interests, different skills. But if one piece is missing, it's a big deal. What we think might be a minor piece, it's just a kidney. If you don't have a kidney, that's a big deal, right? And so you're able to kind of put on and take off these different parts of the body. And I say, like, imagine if you didn't have a brain. Okay, and then they got a real good laugh out of that. They're like, I know people like that.
They did not say that.
They were thinking it. My kid was. No, but and, what if you didn't have lungs? What if you had everything, but your stomach was missing? So just challenging the kids to think about how God compares Christians in the church to the body, to our physical bodies, as a way to say that, there's no insignificant people, right, no insignificant parts. Everyone is created on purpose, for a purpose, and they have an important role and responsibility.
Right, so we shared some real life stories of people, and we put 4 in the book. One's my mom, Matt. But, you know, my mom, her thing is just cooking for people.
Yep.
That's what she does. She's been doing it her whole life. And so we tried to choose all kinds of different stories. But you know what was cool? In the other sessions, they just told their own stories. They told other people's stories that they wanted to tell. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what stories. It could be anybody, because we all have a purpose. And the idea is we're not trying to highlight the people that are, you know, maybe famous or something like that necessarily. No, everybody is important. Everybody. And so we just chose all kinds of different ideas. And you can do that too. Pick whoever you want to talk about.
We chose a widow from our church and just talked about how she's in her 90s.
Yeah.
She doesn't get out of the house anymore.
She's homebound.
But she prays. And you know, if I have a prayer request, she's like one of the first people on my list that I want praying for that prayer request. And so we got to show the kids a picture of her, and we showed those who have maybe some special needs and those who just have special interests. You know, we know somebody who will never get up in front, and like your mom is never going to get up in front and teach somebody, but she'll bake them a meal or send them a cake or something like that as a way. So
so that's what we did. So that kind of wrapped it up. We had finished, and we had boomeranged the whole way back and covered a lot. Would you say that covers quite a bit in 1 week's time? We don't waste any time in VBS. We make it all just keep rolling. It's fun, but it's fun with a purpose. So I hope that helped equip you. Let's see, what time are we at? We have a few minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, we've got probably 5 minutes. We could take a few questions. If anybody has any questions about the teaching, the lessons, really just anything, you could ask us at this point. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Anybody afraid to ask a question in the large room?
Just yell it out so we can hear you.
How much time did you have allotted?
Okay, good question. How much time did we have allotted? So we had allotted 35 minutes.
35 minutes in our teaching time.
If you can allot more, you could be going easily, you know, for an hour, but you won't have that much time.
We did something very different this year, and we'll talk about it some in our director overviews, but we did, rather than small group teaching, we used to have like 9 classrooms going at a time. We had 3 this year.
Well, actually 11.
11. I forgot the toddlers. Yeah.
Right.
And then, but we actually did large group teaching. We would do our opening, and then everybody went to teaching time. And so we had master teachers for toddler, pre-primary, primary, and junior, and we were the junior teachers. And everybody went to lesson time, and for us, we used to be like a third of the group would go to lesson time while they're going to crafts and snacks, and then the second rotation, you had lesson time. So we were kind of forced to do this because of just our building situation, and we reduced our VBS down and everything like that for a lot of different reasons. But we found out that sticking that teaching time right at the beginning made the rest of the day go so much better with the craft time, the snack time, the discussions that our small group leaders were having with the kids, sitting down eating their snacks, because they all had the lesson by then. And
they are fresh when they have the lesson right after the assembly. So that's what we did, and we loved it so much that we're going to keep
do it every year.
So we had 3 big areas that we could have the pre-primaries in one, you know, and the toddlers were in their room. But anyway, so it worked for us. But we allotted 35 minutes. 40 minutes is great. 45 minutes is better. However much time you think you can work, that's what we did.
And that kind of setup allows you to not have to have all your rotations the same length. So if you're all doing your teaching at one time, that could be 40 minutes, but crafts is 20, or whatever you want to do.
Right. And because we were in a large room with a large stage, we did have capability for screens, but we also did something cool. Matt's going to talk about this in the decorating, but in case you don't go to that one, we actually used a blow-up screen on the stage. It was enormous. We had this big blow-up. You can rent them. They're not that expensive, and they're even cheap to buy, honestly.
Yeah, we were on a stage not too much smaller than this one, and so the posters didn't work out well, but of course, we have the digital resources, so all of our teaching posters were on a screen.
Right, so we put them on the blow-up, and we had the oldest kids, and they thought that was cool, that they got the blow-up screen in there and stuff. So anyway, that was something that we did. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, right here.
Did you keep all of the classes together like that, just made them different lengths?
We did, so everybody was together for the opening. I should back up. We did something new this year called the Littles Assembly. So we actually had 2 assemblies going.
Yeah.
But anyway, everybody did their
Preschoolers,
opening,
yeah.
and then everybody went to teaching time, but the toddlers were in their room. The pre-primaries were all together in a room. The primaries were together in a room, which pre-primaries means like the 4s, 5s, Ks, okay, the kids
Yep.
who haven't started in school yet. And then the primaries, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then the juniors were in the worship center.
Yeah, we had
That's
our
what we
VBS
did.
this year. We had, in each session, we had about 350 kids. So we had about 100, 110 getting the pre-primary lesson,
Right.
primary lesson. And so for that, that really broke down to like 8 small groups that would then, you know, after we got done teaching, like 2 of those small groups went to crafts, 2 went to science, 2 went to games, 2 went to snacks, and then they rotated around.
Right, that's how we did it.
Yes.
After the teaching, we rotated, and then at the very end, we all came back again for the closing.
Yep.
Yep, good question. Any other questions?
I have a question for Stacia. Is that Stacia back there?
I don't know.
Am I doing a giveaway? Somebody brought me these. Those I was supposed to show those?
Oh, well,
Okay.
we showed them digitally. So
We'll do
it's
this
okay.
again later. Come on
Okay.
back. No.
All right, so I do want
They
to
were up on the
mention, if you happen to be going, there's a couple different director overviews, okay? So I don't know how many of you in here might be a director or even just want to glean things about just running the VBS at your church or whatever. There's a small group, there's a medium size, and there's a large, so we're doing the large one. Anyway, I just wanted to mention to you, if you are coming to that, feel free to go ahead and grab lunch. You can eat.
Yeah.
We're a children's ministry, you know. It doesn't
Yes.
bother us if somebody's eating while they're in there, and we will be doing a bunch of giveaways. We brought some stuff from our church too.
Yeah. And we
just
don't want to
other
take
things.
any of this stuff back home. So
Right,
if you want to
so
take a bunch of it out of these
If you
bins,
would want
I do
to
want the
use
bins
this
back.
in
but-
some way for maybe you're going to be training your teachers. I don't know how many teachers you have, but feel free to take some extra ones if you want to use that to kind of do the same thing
Yep.
with them, okay? All right, any other questions before we're done? Think we got it? All right, you guys feel like you sort of know what you're doing before you've even read the books? All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.